Hello everyone, welcome to the Aussie Game Podcast where we talk all things Australian football. It's been another big week of Australian football, plenty to unpack. Here to help me do all that is Mopper. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to everybody who's joined us again. Thank you for your support and lots to break down again, even though a lot of our international stars who beat New Zealand in two legs had to travel a long way back to their clubs. And when we break it down, you'll see a lot of them have obviously had the effects with the flights being on the bench. So we've got only small parts of action to talk about, but plenty of other international action with the 20 squad being announced. And a Socceroo hopeful, Mr. Zac Sapsford, back from injury on fire. And I'll get you to break that down for us, Chief. There's lots of excitement here to happen once again on the Aussie game.
Yeah, you're right, mate. Yeah, a few of our players that played for the Socceroos or were involved in that group didn't travel back all that well. But one player who probably was going to be in the mix before he got injured, Zac Sapsford, he's continued his red-hot form for Dundee United. He scored again overnight in a 3-3 draw with Hibernian. That's 2 from 2 since his return from injury. So he really is a man in form. I even saw some fans from Dundee United say during the week that they do not expect him to be at the club all that long. They're so hyped on him that unfortunately they see him out the exit door, hopefully for their sake, with a transfer fee not too far down the road. But let's walk through some of his stats because, as I said, he was, well, in our opinion anyway, he was going to be well and truly in that Socceroos mix for one of those striker positions before he got injured. So in his 8 competitive games so far for Dundee United, he's had 6 goal involvements, being 4 goals and 2 assists. And if you look at it by minutes played, he's had those 6 goal involvements. He's had them across 626 minutes, averaging a goal involvement every 104 minutes. So absolutely outstanding start to his career at Dundee United. But let's go back a little bit further. If we include his last 3 games for the Wanderers, it's 9 goal involvements, 6 goals and 3 assists in 11 competitive games, and an average of a goal involvement every 90 minutes. So Mopper, he is just absolutely on fire. He started his career at Dundee United really well. You know, it's always hard for our players to adapt as well as they might be going in the A-League. It's a totally different challenge over there, but he's absolutely hit the ground running.
Yeah, love the stats, Chief. And what is your answer to your question? Would Popovic picked him if he was fit?
I think toss of a coin between him and Bodic. We know that Bodic is getting very limited game time over at Austria Vienna. So I think, you know, we're not inside Popper's head. He does pick out some weird things at times. But if you go purely just on form, he would have to be in the mix. He would definitely have to be in the mix. And I think in Sapsford's favour as well, one of the best qualities he had, he wasn't exactly a prolific goal scorer in the A-League. He did chip in with his fair amount of goals, but one of his best qualities was his work rate. And I think Popovic and a Popovic team, that would add a whole lot of value, being able to press and work hard. We've seen how Popovic has used Mitch Duke in the past, and they are different type players, but one similarity they do have is their ability to work hard up top and create pressure. And we know that Popovic is going to like that in his team. So I would have thought potentially toss of a coin between him and Bodic. Obviously, you know, that question got taken out of Popovic's mind, if it was in his mind, and Bodic got the nod. But certainly Sapsford, if he continues his form, he's going to be well within a chance in the October window, you would think.
It's pretty exciting to see another Australian young player overseas, Chief, performing well. It's let's have a quick look at his career. He started as a youngster at Hokoya, Sydney City East, before a short stint at Redfern Raiders, Fraser Park, and then back in Hokoya in 2019. He obviously got picked up by Sydney FC. He played 12 games in the NPL side, 12 appearances for 7 goals. Played for then moved over to Western Sydney in the NPL, 28 games, 16 goals, before getting his senior debut, Western Sydney Wanderers, 48 appearances and 12 goals. And he's been capped once at that youth level, Australia under-17s, one single cap. So it'd be very interesting to see what Popper does. But guess what, Chief? You do not have to wait long, my friend, because there'll be a new team picked, obviously, in the next couple of weeks, because America and Canada are coming up in the next window.
Yep. And you spoke about his move from Sydney FC over to the Wanderers. There were a few in that time. I can think Callum Neuenhoff off the top of my head that was part of that Sydney FC setup that moved across to Wanderers and then got his move over. He's over at Hearts at the moment. But plenty of players that kind of that seem to kind of make that jump across. But just looking at his Scottish Premiership stats, because he's well up there in a few of these key stats. So he's 9th in goals scored. He's 12th in the XG, and he's 9th XG on target and 12th in shots on target. So he's certainly performing very, very well for Dundee United. And as I mentioned, those fans of Dundee United aren't expecting him to stick around too long. They're that impressed with him. So they're the ones that are seeing him week in, week out. So I think it's a pretty good gauge of what he's up to. And look, in the game overnight, Dundee United, they were up 3-1 and they actually threw it away to draw 3-3. So Hibbs on the other side of the pitch, Jack Iredale, he played 88 minutes and Martin Boyle played 56 minutes. So that's two of our boys that were coming back from that long-haul trip from Auckland.
And we'll discuss further, obviously, with Sapsford. We've got some Socceroo names that were left out of this squad, and we'll debate them in the second part of our show tonight. And we'll no doubt young Sapsford will come up in that talk. All right, Chief, overseas, let's have a quick look at last weekend after we recorded, and then we'll break down overnight.
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones. A few of the highlights from last weekend. So Katrina Gorry, she unfortunately gave away a penalty as Spurs converted for a 1-0 win. Claire Hunt, actually in that game, was outstanding. She threw her body in front of absolutely everything. Really good game from Claire Hunt. Charlie Grant got a couple of minutes off the bench as well. Emily Van Egmond, she debuted for Leicester. And Millie Borden, after her move from Arsenal, she debuted for Hibernian as well. Claire Wheeler got 45 minutes off the bench for Everton. Unfortunately, they lost 4-1 to Liverpool. And Dario Vidicic, coach of Brighton, they started with a 0-0 draw with Aston Villa. So there were a few of the key things that happened just after we recorded the other night. Let's jump straight into England, Mopper. It was a bit of an initiation for Ange Postecoglou, his return to the Premier League in a 3-0 loss to Arsenal. We did cover Ange, his return to Nottingham Forest, and also we reviewed the Socceroos in our last podcast episode. So if you're interested in listening to that, jump back and give it a listen. But you watched the game against Arsenal, mate. What did you think?
Oh, tough initiation. Fancy going to Arsenal away, one of the probably Champions League favourites and title favourites with Liverpool, and they've just strengthened again. If you look at last year's game, they lost on the same score. They lost 3-0 last year as well in 24th of November. And pretty similar patterns. They were Arsenal 1-0 up last year and then obviously 2 late goals as well. So pretty similar scoreline. I wouldn't expect too much from Notts Forest. The challenge for them this year is, yes, we know about their good run last year, but they're going to have to manage an increased fixture list, which includes Europa, the Cup games, which he's got midweek against Swansea away. So he's going to get a good chance to test his squad. I don't think anyone would have thought that Ange could have pulled off a miracle last night. Arsenal are just one of the best teams in Europe at the moment and breaking them down. If you look at, was there anything different in the style? There were small pockets of press that I've seen in parts. But I think one noticeable thing is they lifted their possession rate for the first time, especially away from home. So there was an increased possession. They nearly shaded Arsenal on the possession stats at 50-50 at one stage. So I guess there's a small little, this is where we're going. But he'll need to look at his whole squad. He's got lots of things to sort out there and to try to find the right balance. Way too early for me, but good to see him back. He's going to be under a hell of a lot of pressure. You've seen by the Arsenal fans giving it to him. He'll be well used to it, though. I definitely see a change in his approach with the interviews. A lot more balance, a lot more focus on just keeping the words simple. And I think that'll go a much better space for him. But geez, it's the Premier League, mate. The heat's on. It's on every week. So yeah, look forward to seeing the progress. We wish him well, but geez, he's got a mountain to climb, and hopefully we can see a trophy run of something. But I'll tell you what, their owner come out last night as well and said we should be challenging for trophies. So
Well,
massive statement already. So good luck, Ange. We're with you, but looking at that squad, I think you'd rather have Tottenham's.
yeah, a couple of things with this squad. Zinchenko wasn't available last night because he's on loan from Arsenal. So that he was a miss. I think he'll add a fair bit to that team. Also, Douglas Luiz, I believe he was on the bench, but just not used. So potentially getting up to some fitness. But I think he'll be an asset for Ange as well. Probably my assessment of the game is that Arsenal, obviously, quality with the way they move the ball and what they do, particularly on set pieces. I mean, a couple of the goals came from set pieces, but that hit the first minute of the second half that just kind of killed off the game. Really, that was really unfortunate for them. But really, it looked like kind of in lots of kind of individual errors rather than kind of tactical things. So potentially that's just maybe a matter of shifting some players around or what you need to do. So there's some hope there for Ange. I think he needs a bit of time to get his squad right. But he was asked in the post match press conference how quickly we're going to see Ange ball. Is it going to be weeks? Is it going to be months? And he came out pretty quickly and said it's going to be Wednesday, referencing Carabao Cup.
Oh, I love it.
Because I think, as much as you say he's measured, and I did listen to a few of his press conferences, and you can kind of see that he does still come out with these one-liners, and I think some of the press is just going to take him and run, but may just need to be a bit more careful with some of the things he says.
Well, they'll get plenty of practice, Chief. They've got 5 games in the next 2 weeks, Thursday, Sunday, and then back midweek again before the international break. Swansea away, Burnley away, Europa away to Real Betis. Home games not till the 28th of September against Sunderland, and then home to Midtjylland, 3rd of October. So he'll have plenty of games to have a good look, and we wish him well and all the best.
Yeah. All right, mate. Let's touch on a few more things in England. There was a couple of WSL games on Friday night England time, Saturday morning our time. So there's a 2-1 loss for Dario Vidicic's Brighton against Manchester City. Good to see 22-year-old Charlie Rule play 90 minutes in defence for Brighton. And the other game in that time slot was Arsenal, who had a massive 5-1 win over West Ham. So Caitlin Ford played 90 minutes and also bagged a goal. Steph Catley played 88 minutes. Cooney Cross, who we spoke about last week, an unused sub again for Cooney Cross, unfortunately. And yeah, after giving that penalty away last week for Katrina Gorry on the end of a 5-1 hammering, unfortunately, she played 90 minutes as well. But good to see our Matildas firing away in the WSL.
Yeah, great to see Charlie Rule. What a great story this is. Sydney FC product, 42 games for Sydney FC, played a little bit of Sydney Olympic, and then went over to Brighton 2023, had a bad injury, has played 14 games for Brighton, 1 goal, is capped at international level at 17s, had 5 appearances, 20s at 3, and has had a maiden cap back in 2023 when she was only 20. So promising central defender that we've got there, Chief, and yeah, good luck to Charlie in the WSL. It's great recognition there, Dario, given her the confidence to put us straight in.
All right, let's touch on a few games in the lower leagues of England. So 17 minutes for Rafael Borges Rodriguez off the bench in Wigan's 3-0 win over Doncaster. So he's on loan there from Coventry, just getting some minutes, which is nice to see. Callum Elder, his side picked up their first win of the season against West Brom, who hadn't lost before that one. Elder played the full 90 minutes. Our 2 boys in the Watford and Blackburn game both started from the bench. So Nestor Irankunda, he was introduced off the bench playing 36 minutes, and Lewis Miller also came off the bench playing 20 minutes. Blackburn beat the Hornets 1-0 in that one. Cameron Burgess had a really good game in Swansea's 2-2 draw, with Hull completing the most passes and winning the most duels. So he was one of our players that came straight back in the starting lineup playing a full game. Master played the full 90 for Millwall, completed the most passes in the match in their 1-1 draw with Charlton. Keeper Ashley Maynard Brewer was an unused sub for Charlton. And speaking of keepers, player of the match performance for Joe Gauci, who only got about 5 minutes or so across those two games in New Zealand. So his side got their first win of the season with a 2-0 win over Exeter. Unfortunately, Caleb Watts was injured right at the start of the game. He got subbed off after only 4 minutes and was seen on crutches post-game, which is really sad for him. He actually scored an absolute screamer during the week for Plymouth Argyle, but they got a 3-2 away win against Luton. So good for his club, but hopefully Caleb Watts is not out of action for too long.
Yeah, obviously we are obviously fatigue for a lot of these players, hence why their coaches have probably made those decisions. But great to see Joe Gauci get a man of the match performance there. And yeah, we wish Caleb Watts all the best in his recovery. Hopefully see him back soon. All right, Chief, over to Scotland. What do we got here? Massive result overnight. And I'll tell you what, for those Rangers fans, trouble is already there and brewing. Chief, run us down in Scotland where we've got lots of players.
Is there some kind of Kevin Muscat kind of bat signal in the sky for Rangers fans? It's like
They might have to wait a few weeks. He's in a title battle, so can't wait to discuss that one.
It's going to be a tough decision for him potentially. All right, but as you said, Hearts. We mentioned this one during the week, but Hearts getting a 2-0 win over Rangers. That now puts them 9 points clear of Rangers, and we know the aspirations that Hearts have to be right up there competing at the top of the Scottish Premiership. So I'll tell you what, it's a big statement win at Ibrox as well. Cam Devlin had a really busy game in the midfield, making the most tackles. I reckon he was really unlucky to not miss that, Socceroos squad.
But got a lot of plaudits, Chief. A lot of Hearts fans are saying he's having an absolute blinder over there. So, yeah, maybe it's not too long because I'll tell you what, it's not just the Australians that are talking about him. It's definitely over there as well.
Yeah, he's had a really good start to the season. Another defensive midfielder, Keanu Bacchus, he was an integral part of the Socceroos for a while, but seems to be out of favour at the moment. He played 90 minutes in St Mirren's 2-1 win over Falkirk, so they've moved up to 4th in Scotland, St Mirren. The boys at Motherwell, Apostolos Stamatolopoulos, he led the line and played 61 minutes, and Johnny Katrumbas played 57 minutes and had a really solid game in the back line for Motherwell. They drew 1-1 with Dundee FC. Pleasing to see that Aberdeen picked up their first point of the season. Nicholas Milanovic, who was part of that Socceroos squad, and Cassini Yengi, who wasn't, neither of them were included in the squad. So not sure about Yengi, but Milanovic, as you mentioned before, probably a bit of fatigue. Nick Suman was on the bench, the keeper for Aberdeen. And on the other side of the pitch, Ryan McGowan, he had a full game, and Teddy Yengi was taken off late. So, yeah, first point of the season for Aberdeen, but they haven't had the best start, but, a point in the right direction potentially for them.
And they've got Europa Conference League they're going to have to balance out soon too, so they've got their work cut out for them.
Absolutely.
All right, over in the Serie A, Italy, Chief, we've got Parma. Serrati plays another 90 minutes, the Warrior, completing the most passes in the game as his side lost 2-0 to Calgary. Lots of pressure on Parma, losing 2-0, but they're going to have a tough season this year. Hopefully they can survive the battle in Serie A. And then this is disappointing over in Italy as well. Roma Heatley, unused sub. I've seen a little bit of this game. Roma conceding 2 late goals, losing to Sporting. This is a crucial Champions League qualifier. They're up 1-0, and the last couple of minutes they scored 2 goals. Rona Heatley unused. She played the first leg of the previous tie. Not sure why she's not getting minutes, but I'll tell you what, after that result, maybe she'll be back in, hopefully in the next qualifier for that one. And good news, Chloe Berryhill signs for Como in Serie B. So another Aussie over there in Italy making an impression, and we wish her well in Como in the second division in Italy. Over in Germany, Chief, we've got some transfer news or possibility of a transfer. This one's been going on for a few weeks.
Dylan Leonard has been expected to be announced for Schalke soon. So last reports I saw, he's on his way to Germany to complete all the procedures, medicals, etc., to join Schalke. So it'll be a big signing for Dylan Leonard to move over there. And then, yeah, we'll just kind of see what happens with him. Potentially, he's one of those ones that might get loaned out to their B team and just kind of make his way there. I wouldn't expect him to be a part of the first team's plans straight away. I think they would see him as a long-term prospect. So I guess we'll wait and see. That one might even be announced by the time you hear this, but we'll keep an eye on that one. But I'm expecting that one to be done pretty soon, I'd say.
So we wish Dylan all the best, and hopefully that move comes through.
Yep.
Staying in Germany, Chief, we've got Haley Rosso comes in late as her side lose 3-1 to Real Madrid in Champions League qualifying. Imagine if you're a Frankfurt and said, you got to play Real Madrid to qualify for the Champions League.
Yeah, how are Real Madrid in that Champions League qualification? That's obviously one of Radzo's former clubs as well, but yeah, not rough draw, isn't it? Like,
That is tough. Anyway, and they've obviously got to go back and play a second leg. So hopefully Russo can start. Obviously in Denmark, Chief, we've got lots of Aussies over in Randers. Break it down over in Denmark. We've got a couple of teams to go through.
Yeah, Mo Toure, he's backed up his Socceroos performance with the long flight and quick turnaround. They actually played Friday night over there, Saturday morning here, so it was an even quicker turnaround for Mo Toure. But he got 20 minutes off the bench as they won 1-0. And Moussa Touré's brother was an unused sub, but he's been called up to that under-20 squad, which is really exciting. Izzo was not in the matchday squad. Now, he did come off late for the Socceroos, and I remember in the commentary they're making a comment about him potentially having a strain or something. So let's hope that he hasn't aggravated something from the past or picked up a new injury while he was at the Socceroos. So we'll keep an eye on that one, see if there's any news. Over at Brøndby, Marcus Younes, he was included in the matchday squad for the first time since moving from Western Sydney Wanderers, but he didn't make the field. But exciting for Younes to be making some inroads already over there at Brøndby. I saw one of the post-match shots. I was doing a team photo in front of like their version of like the wall. Made what an experience for these young players to be going over and playing in atmospheres like that. Absolutely incredible. And yeah, hopefully we see some game time for Younes in the not too distant future.
Yeah, and congratulations to Moussa Touré. Had a great Asian Cup campaign for the 20s, so look forward to seeing him in the World Cup. Over in Austria, we got Grazier AK. Jacob Ilitano was rated his side's best player in the 3-0 loss to BW Lens, and they remain winless this season. But it's not affecting Jacob Ilitano's form, and obviously another left-sided prospect there for the Socceroos. Obviously, over in Sweden, this is one of my favourite young up-and-coming players, Daniela Galic, playing for Vitsto GIK, scores the winner in 1-0 win over Anglises FC United. They're a mid-table team, and they're going well, and they've had a great win overnight. And what a great story Daniela Galic is. She scored in the Champions League last year, actually, for 20.
Yeah, for 20, yeah.
Yeah, so she's in great form. 19 years of age. Watch this prospect come through, playing, I think, at the right level, at the right club to build her football and get lots of games. So well done, Daniela. She's having a great start over there, so well done. Chief, we've got Amy Sayer, plays for a full game for Christian Stards, and Remy Simonsen comes off late as their side win 2-1 over Vax Joe DFF, maintaining fifth spot in Sweden. So they're still going solid over there, the girls. So obviously we know how tough Sweden's league is, so it's great to see them all in it. And
I think as you said before, like it's a great stepping stone league, isn't it? Like when they're not quite ready for one of the bigger leagues. We've seen so many of our Matildas or female Australian players have that experience, play in Sweden, then come across to, say, England, for example.
Yeah, and Sweden's one of the top sides in Europe. You've seen that through their football in the World Cup and Euros. So there's definitely some competition over there. So it's a great building ground.
Let's jump over to the Netherlands. NAC Breda, the Iron Man, Max Ballard, he doesn't need any rest. He played 90 minutes as his side scored late to draw 2-2 with Twente. So great result for NAC Breda. But on the back of some solid Socceroos performances straight back in there. How good is he, Maxi Ballard?
Oh, you're right, Chief. I love that word, Iron Man. What a machine. There was no way Brady was resting him. He's one of their best players. So well done, Maxi. Doing us proud, mate. What else have we got over in Holland? We've got a couple more teams to go through.
Yeah. Cam Pupion got 20 minutes off the bench for ADO Den Haag in the second division over there. And Josh Nisbet played 90 minutes in their 3-3 draw with Zhong Ajax, also in the second division. Jordy Boss, our superstar left wing back, he was an unused sub, but Feyenoord picked up 1-0 win to maintain their perfect record at the top of the Eredivisie. So his side going particularly well. Not a huge shock that he was unused given a bit of his injury history. I'm sure that they didn't want to risk anything with Jordy Boss, but they were able to get the job done without him anyway.
And in Belgium, we've got KV Mechelen, Ryan Teague's team. You've got some time. You've got 3 minutes off the bench as KV Mechelen drew 1-1 with Standard Liège to remain unbeaten. Over in Croatia.
Yeah, Croatia. Frank Karacic, who obviously was withdrawn from that Socceroos squad through injury, he actually played 73 minutes, so that's a really positive sign that he's recovered well from that injury. So, yeah, they unfortunately lost 2-0 to NK Vrazdan. Anthony Kalick, his teammate, was an unused sub. And this one was a really great one. I sent Anthony Carter a message the other day congratulating him. He got 90 minutes off the bench and he was credited with an assist for their equaliser in a 1-1 draw away to Benfica. So how good's that? Like massive club like Benfica and Anthony Carter contributing to his team's performance.
And guess what? They did it with only 10 men. They were down to 10 men after a send-off in the 38th minute. So super great to see Anthony Carter back and getting some minutes and setting up. What a crucial goal. Imagine playing at Benfica. Wow, that's a great stadium. And they've shocked them, and that moves Santa Clara up to another important point, up to 8th. And that's Benfica's first drop of points this season.
Yeah, well done to Anthony. All right, China, mate, you've already jumped ahead and mentioned Kevin Muscat, but do you want to talk us through what's happening in China?
Mate, this is crunch time in China this week. These sides, the top 4 sides, all within the title race. And guess what? They all play each other this weekend.
Yeah, nice.
And right smack bang in the middle is AFC Cup and AFC Champions League for all 4 sides. So it is going to be massive. So Kevin Muscat, Shanghai Port's coach, now second. They've in China, they beat Yunnan Yukon 4-2, and some of their rivals, as we just discussed, just dropped points. So they're only 2 points behind first. 7 games to go. You've put a little note in here until he takes the Rangers job. Well, does that just add to the drama of this Chinese Super League, one of the most competitive leagues in Asia? So we've got Chengdu on top on 53. Shanghai Port 2 points behind. Shanghai, who were leading, were on 50, but only 3 points behind. And Beijing Guan on 48, 5 points behind. A massive drop for them. But this is what I'm saying. This Sunday, coming up on the 21st of September, Beijing hosts Shanghai Port and Shanghai Shenhua host Chengdu. And they all play in AFC Champions League qualifiers midweek. So we have an absolute cracker that's going to be happening in Chinese Super League. This could be the defining week, my friend. Whoever wins this weekend, or it could be just stalemates and it could just keep going. This is on. And what are your thoughts on Mr. Muscat's at the Rangers job? We shouldn't speak because the Rangers job's not available.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Because the thing is that Rangers are not going to want to wait 7 games to the end of the Chinese Super League season if they want to make a move.
Interim coach, maybe.
Maybe, but are they in such a state that they just need to get someone in? And look, as I said, we shouldn't speak until the job's actually available. But I think from an Aussie angle, it would be awesome to see Muscat there and at one of his former clubs. Yeah, I don't know. It's a really tough decision for him. I'm sure that in his mind, he'd love to see out the rest of the Chinese Super League season. He would not want to step away this close to the end, but I'm sure he has aspirations to get back to Europe at some point. And if this is an opportunity, how do you pass it up?
Yeah, look, new owners at Rangers, so intriguing times. It'd be very interesting to see if there's a statement. Look, I'd still be surprised if there is a sacking. If they're going to look for someone, it's going to take a few weeks anyway. So whether it's happening behind the scenes, who knows? But I tell you what, he would be the perfect fit for this club. And that's just not being me Australian biased. He is that type of character that Rangers need at the moment because they were never sure. But anyway, let's not speculate because there's other football that we need to cover in Asia.
All right, let's go over to Japan and Mitch Duke. He came on late and scored a late equaliser for Makita Zelvia. Keep their slim title hopes alive in the J League. It's very, very tight in the J League. Makita Zelvia probably just outside that group challenging, but you just never know. But yeah, good to see Mitch Duke getting some time first and foremost and getting on the score sheet. So pleased to see that news for Mitch Duke. In Cerezo Osaka, a 4-2 win for Arthur Papas' side in the league. They were on a three-game winless streak. So good to see them get back in the winner's circle. I saw this one pop up this morning and it brought a smile to my face in the USA or Canada, if we want to talk about where the club itself is. But for Vancouver Whitecaps, Giuseppe Bovalina, he came on late in a 7-0 win and provided the assist for Thomas Mullers' hat-trick. It was a header he put back across goal and then Muller headed home. Typical kind of Muller goal, but Muller went straight over to Bovalina to celebrate. And what a cool moment, Giuseppe Bovalina, to be involved in one of those superstar hat tricks. How cool.
Muller, he's a star, isn't he? And what a moment for Giuseppe, hey? He'd be gleaming from ear to ear. What a great story. That's what football's all about, isn't it? I love these stories, and
It's just
well
like
done.
he's a young player still making his way in his career, but it's just one of those moments that you imagine you'll never forget. Like pretty cool.
I
Like,
was there, yeah. I was there moment, and yeah, we wish him the best because learning off him as well would be an absolute, great wealth of knowledge there. And yeah, so good luck to him, and obviously, hopefully, Muller can pay it back one day, and he might be able to get a first goal.
well, yeah,
He's a
Bovalina
bit of
was
a hog
linked.
day, Muller.
Yeah, true. Bovalina was linked back to the A League for a while, but good for him that he's persisted over there at Vancouver and still not getting a lot of minutes, but hopefully he can start to crack more first team minutes going
Yeah,
forward.
he's only 20, and guess where he's from? The development state themselves, Adelaide United.
Yeah.
He played 23 games for Adelaide before going over there. So he has been capped 4 times for the Australian under-23. So, well done to the 20-year-old and watched his space, and we wish him all the best. Another one from Croydon as well.
Yeah. I believe he was in that under 23 squad that were just away trying to qualify for the Asian Cup as well. So, yeah, he's made a quick return back to the squad. All right, a couple more in the USA. Aidan O'Neill, obviously on the back of Socceroos duty, had 71 minutes in their 3-1 win over Chicago. Patrick Yazbek at Nashville, 21 minutes off the bench in the 2-1 loss to Cincinnati. Kai Rolls, who's a regular starter for DC United. He came off the bench as well, 30 minutes as they drew 1-1 with Orlando. And Matilda Courtney Vine, she got 25 minutes off the bench in their 2-1 win over Angel City.
And sad news too, Archie Goodwin's injured, so we're not sure of his return date either after signing for Charlotte just over a few weeks ago. But their side won with a big win over Inter Miami, pushing them up to third. So great result there for Charlotte, and we wish Archie Goodwin all the best.
Yep, that's a wrap of all our club news. There's some big games going on tonight as well. You would have noticed a few of our regular championship clubs not getting a mention. And yeah, let's talk through a couple of those big games that are coming up. Portsmouth, they travel away to Southampton. So obviously our quartet over there at Portsmouth, they'll be looking to get some minutes. Rapid Vienna are at home tonight. Marco Tilio will obviously be looking to get some game time as well. And then St. Pauli, they're playing Augsburg tonight as well. So Connor Metcalf, I'm sure. Hopefully he's recovered pretty well from his Socceroos duty and he can play for St. Pauli tonight. So we'll bring any highlights that come out of these games to you next weekend when we record.
Yeah, can't wait for tonight. Some great games. So, yeah, that's a wrap of overseas. We'll break for part 2 and we'll come back and talk about the national teams.
If you like our content, why not give us a follow on the socials where we provide lots of updates between podcast episodes. We're most active on Instagram, Blue Sky, and X. So search the Aussie Game and you should be able to find us. All right, let's get back into it. All right, we're back for part 2. We're going to talk national teams. As I mentioned in part 1, we did do a pretty thorough analysis of the Soccer Ashes series with New Zealand on the last episode of the podcast. So if you want to go back and listen to that, you should be in the episode behind this one. But Moppo, I just wanted to get any final thoughts on the Socceroos, anything that came to mind since we recorded?
No, just excited of the progression and looking forward to the next window, which is only in a few weeks' time against Canada and America. And our squad depth is just at an all-time high and competition is rampant. And I'm just, super pumped for that. So well done, the boys. 2 wins. What more can you ask for? Everyone's going to be chomping at the bit to see what happens in the next couple of weeks when they announce this next squad, though.
All right, speaking of squad depth, mate, I do have a question for you. And I did pop this up on the socials during the week and got some nice responses. So thanks for everyone who interacted with this question. But I had to look back at all the players that are currently playing the A-League that have been used by Popovic since he's been the Socceroos coach. And I asked the question, are any of these upgrades on what we saw against New Zealand? So I'll read you out the names, Mopper, and maybe you can tell me one at a time, or maybe I'll read them all out and then you tell me if you think any of these players might be in the mix for Tony Popovic going forward. So Aziz Bayic, Craig Goodwin, Nishan Valupale, Luke Bratton, Anthony Caceres, Brandon Borrello, Ryan Grant, Adam Taggart, Jason Davidson, Kai Truen, and Alex Grant. Now, before you answer, I actually forgot about a few of these players that had been brought into the squads. And these were just ones playing the matchday squad. I think off the top of my head, Paul Okon-Engsler was in the squad, but not called up on the matchday. But I think, as you talked about with the depth, it just shows where we were going before to pull players from and what options we do have available now. What do you think? Are there any players in there that you think might be in the mix, either in the future windows or potentially for the World Cup?
Ooh, it's a big question. Okay, let's start with Aziz Bayic, left side. So we've just seen Geordie Boss, who's playing for Feyenoord, on fire, fantastic talent. So I think Geordie Boss is a lock at number 1 left wing back. There's a lot of depth in this area. It could be a struggle for Aziz Bayic. We've got Jacob Italiano that we spoke about, Silvera, although he's got a challenge now that Matt Taggart's starting for Middlesbrough. So yeah, this is probably the biggest question mark I've got, whether he uses Aziz Bayic as a backup to Geordie Boss. I think we'll see. I think the disadvantage for Aziz Bayic is he's going to be 35 next year, and the A-League's shorter. The others are going to be playing in Europe. He does have one asset, I think, and that's that Melbourne City's in the Champions League, Asian Champions League. So that's probably the biggest question mark. The others, not so much. I don't think we'll see Craig Goodwin. I love Craig Goodwin. I think he's a great player. But the attacking depth that we've got, and we just rattled off more names, we're missing still Riley McGree and Jackson Irvine. They will be in the squad, so you've got to fit them back in first. So I don't think Craig Goodwin's got a chance, but I wouldn't complain if he was, though. He's a great player. There's 26 players, sorry, I should have stated that at the start, that we can take. So is that a good mark? So Valupale, he was Popper loved Valupale, and
Big favourite of Popper.
Yeah, he played some good minutes and some good game time too. So Yeah, that'll be very interesting. But Flupelay's up against some red hot form players at the moment, so I'm very interesting to see how that one plays out. His disadvantage, he's only got the A League and no Asia Champions League for him. So again, that short window I think will go against him. If the players still fire in Europe, it would be a heartbreaking decision for Popper on that one. He'd be torn. Luke Bratton, I don't think has got any chance. Caceres, I don't think has got any chance. The midfields, with Max Ballard now coming in, so I don't see those two. They're good combatants, but I think that the future is in the next generation. Borello is way up against it. I don't think we'll see him. Yeah, again, we've already discussed the attacking talent. Ryan Grant, I don't think we'll see. Again, we've just got too much depth in that position. Adam Taggart's another one that I don't think we'll see. Again, too much depth. Adam Taggart, Jason Davidson, next. I don't think we'll see Jason Davidson. There's too much competition down the left side. Central defenders, three of them. That we haven't even talked about Harry Suter. So again, this is probably my one that I think we'll see in between here in the World Cup. Kai Truan, I think we'll see him. Asian Champions League bonus, he'll have that to balance with A-League. That's what he'll need. So if he goes well in the Asian Champions League and we see some form out of him, I think Popper will test him. Not sure in the next camp, but maybe the one after. So I think Kai Truan's a bit of a smoky for me, even though there's still plenty of depth in that back three. And no, I don't think Alex Grant's got much hope either. So, look, I just think with McGree's got to come back, he'll be in the side for sure. Jackson Irvine, he's a lock. So I just can't see any of these players making it. Kai Truan, Smokey, Azerbaijan is probably the biggest question mark. And Volupele Popper's going to be torn on this one because if Segicic, Irakunda, Sapsford, Archie Goodwin, Toure,
Metcalf.
Yeah, Metcalf, it just goes on and on and on. That it's going to be hard, especially because they've already suffered because the A-League doesn't start till in a few weeks. So they're at a massive disadvantage. So I wish them all the best, but I do think Truan and I do think Flupele and Beige will see in some of the camps going forward. What are your thoughts?
I tend to agree. As is Bajic, I know he's getting on, but I think about some of the other left back options. I know Sami Silvera's been playing there for Borough, but as you said, his game time might be limited now. Guys like Elder, and then you do have Italiano, whether it's enough to bring in a backup that's inexperienced, that hasn't played, Popper might just fall on the experience for Bajic just to get us to the World Cup. But then I think from that point on, it's about blooding these new players behind Geordie Boss as a backup. Goodwin was very popular on the social media when we put out the question. A lot of people thought that he should be in there. Volupele just said close ties with Popper, so potentially he's in the mix, but yeah, hard up against it with the other options. I agree with most of the rest that you said. I don't think we're going to see a lot of them. Kai Truan's probably the one, but then you look at it and go, if we're talking about 6 centre backs, we saw the 3 that played the other night. Throw in there Hayden Matthews, add in Harry Suter, Kai Rolls, who played on the left wing back, but it's probably more suited to the left centre back. Be a tough group to crack.
And that's what we want. We said this earlier. This is what we want. So, look, I never give up hope any of these players because you're fantastic talents. But again, I think you would have seen in that last game away in New Zealand, our progression is only moving in one direction, and this squad is based on that progression. And they're all at I'd said it on the previous podcast, they're all at the right clubs, Chief. I think probably Hayden Matthews and now Silvera are probably got the biggest tests, followed by Bodic. I think they're at risk because I think Silvera now is just going to be a squad player. Hayden Matthews, we've seen left out or just on the bench, not getting much time. That's a risk, and I just think. Yeah, they're fantastic talents as well. So wow, what a great field to pick from, and it's just great that we can discuss this. What were the comments? What were some of the people's feedback?
I think, as I said, generally it was Goodwin was a big favourite in terms of has to come back in just based on his quality. And then Aziz Bayic was pretty favoured by a lot of people, and then Kai Truan. That were probably the main three that were mentioned, as we've mentioned as well. But look, all those players, well, majority of them have contributed really well, whether that's in camp to be pushing players along, or whether it's actually contributing in games to get us qualified for the World Cup. So we must pay huge credit to those players. But I think, as you said, it's just we've just developed so much in the past kind of 6 months or so, with good young players getting opportunities, good clubs and good leagues, and now we just have a bigger profile to choose from. So I think that's just the direction we're heading.
Yeah,
And
100%.
yeah,
And
that's just where it is.
and look, under 23s will be in the Asia Cup, so they're going to have a window to impress. The 20s have got their World Cup next month, another massive window to impress, and there's some high pedigree in both of these teams. So, yeah, wow, it's going to be cutthroat. 26 for the World Cup can get to go on the plane. So, good luck to everyone. It's a great position to be in.
As you said, we're probably only 2 and a bit weeks away from seeing that next squad. So I guess we'll get some answers then to see if some of these A-League players are going to be included. All right, let's leave the Socceroos chart there. Let's go to the under-23s. So they qualified for the 2026 Asian Cup with a 0-0 draw against China. It was a pretty dull game from what I saw. Kind of two teams that were happy for a draw, which meant they both qualified and just doing what they needed to do. But that was all set up by the first two games from the under-23s. And yeah, it's exciting to see this group come together for the Asian Cup. I think you said last time it's in Saudi Arabia in January next year.
100%.
So yeah, that's going to come around very quickly for that group as well.
All right, now let's look to the exciting big announcement. We've got a World Cup right on front of our doorstep, and it's the under-20s chief, and they've announced their final squad for the young Socceroos. And wow, what about some of these inclusions? And this is from a side that won the Asia Cup, that convincingly beat Japan in the semi-final, and then went on to win the final. So, and we've added to this, and wow, this is. I know we've drawn the group of death, but there's hope, my friend. But let's break down the side. Do you want to go through the names of the players selected for this under-20 side?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Let's talk through it. So number one, this is all in just alphabetical order. So Lewis Agosti, Nathan Amanatides, Alex Badalato, Daniel Benny, Liam Bonatig, Max Caputo, Sebastian Esposito, Daniel Graskowski, Stephen Hall, Lucas Harrington, Joshua Insera, Luka Jovanovic, Panagiotis Kikianis, Zach Lisaslawski, Paul Ocon Engsler, James Overy. Very exciting to see James Overy in this squad. Jalen Pearman, Thiago Quintal, Alex Robinson, Fabian Taladera, Musa Toure, Reece Yuli, Johnny Yole. What do you make of it, mate?
Mate, I've been following this team for a while, and oh wow, what about this? We've got Liam Bonateg in the side, James Overy for Man U. I was super excited to see they've had the discussion with him. How cool's that? Max Caputo, as in, wow. And some unlucky players going out, and this was all part of the Asia Cup squad. Dean Bosniak, Adam Bergera, Fran Stelly, Gus Husafut, Medin Mehmedi, and Oliver Randazzo. No discredit to those players. They've just we're super stacked with talent here. And I know when you look at the group for this World Cup, we've got Italy first on the 29th of September at 6 a.m., cracking time. Then we play Argentina, one of the best young teams in the world, on the 2nd of October at 9 a.m., another cracking time. And then we've got Cuba on the 5th of October at 10 a.m. Now, before you're worried about this group, don't worry, because this team is severely talented. And we've played Argentina in a couple of friendlies. And mark my word, when we played them, we lost 2-1 and 2-0. Now, a lot of our best players were missing in these friendlies. A few of them were there, but a lot were missing. A top talent. We also obviously won the Asia Cup in superb form. And I just want to touch point on the World Cup itself. We're at advantage. I know we've got a tough group. There's 24 teams in this competition. Only 8 get knocked out. So 6 teams that come last, and I reckon we're a great chance against Cuba, looking at their sides. 6 teams that come last. So only 2 of these 6 groups will get eliminated if they finish third, worst case scenario. If we finish top 2, even better, and we play Italy first, which I think is a massive asset. Now, how does Italy under-20s go? Well, the advantage of Europe is they have an under-20 elite league. And Italy's groups, Czech Republic, Poland, Romania, Switzerland, Portugal, and Germany. So, all cracking sides. So they're really playing cracking football in the lead up to this. Italy got pumped 4-0 against Germany. Germany's one of the best teams in under-20s. But they've also had a good result against England. They won 2-1 Italy as well. So they've had a mixed balance of team, but they're in there. But I think playing them first is a massive advantage. We talk about Argentina. Well, look at they have a 2-tier system over there, a Group A and a Group B. There's 5 teams in each group. This is how they qualify. They were up against Colombia, Brazil, Ecuador, and Bolivia. They come second in their group. 4 matches, 2 wins, 2 draws, which then put them into the next one. And then there's 6 teams. And now those top 4 teams, the top 4 qualify. Only 2 missing out. 2 missing out were Uruguay and Chile. So Argentina comes second again in that group with 5 matches, 3 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. Now, just look at some of these players that play for Argentina under 20s. Claudio Echeverri is for Man City Chief. His market value is £18 million. He's on loan at Leverkusen and he's getting game time. So he was the second top goal scorer for Argentina in the qualifiers. And then they've got Mayo Carrizio, who was the top goal scorer. He's playing in Argentina, market value $6 million. So they've got some talent, but we matched them and were very competitive against them in the 2 friendlies. And we didn't know at the time that they'd be our World Cup in our group, but I reckon those 2 friendlies have put us in good stead, plus the Asia Cup. So we've played some quality football leading into this tournament. And adding those names in, I cannot be more super excited about this World Cup going forward.
There is lots of excitement around this squad, mate. When we kind of shared it on the socials during the week, plenty of people buzzing about the inclusions, potentially, especially, James Overy, as you said. And I think it's important. We were a bit concerned about the likes of Daniel Benny and Jalen Pearman, QPR, whether we would get these players because clubs do not have to let their players leave for these tournaments. So great to get these players in. And James Overy is a big one because we know that he's on the books of Manchester United. Lots of people think very fondly of him, and we know he's bounced around at underage level between Scotland and Australia. So I think bring him to this tournament and hopefully we get to see a lot more of him play could be potentially a pathway to the Socceroos in the future, which would be really, really exciting. But fantastic squad. The squad is going to be cut down to 21 before the tournament. I'm not sure why. Seems very small to be bringing that kind of size to a tournament. I even saw someone question about how many keepers you bring in the 21-man squad, which I thought was an interesting question. Be a risk to run with only 2, but there you go. But yeah, we are going to do a full preview dedicated to the under-20 World Cups in the lead-in to this tournament in a couple of weeks' time. So keep an eye out for that one. We're going to run through in a lot more detail. But yeah, first and foremost, good to see this squad picked. Good to see some of these inclusions. I think we've upgraded from what we had at the Asian Cup, which we won, of course, and we're looking really good for this World Cup. It's exciting.
Yeah, and there was one opportunity from the Asia Cup that I thought we needed an area of the pitch we need to improve on. It was on that left-hand side of the fence, and wow, to get James Overy, wow. And imagine James Overy on the left, Benny on the right.
Yeah.
Oh, watch out. This is a very exciting squad. 2 more weeks. I've got to wait for the start. So, yeah, can't wait. Super pumped.
One of our other underage teams, the under-17s, the Joeys, they're currently competing in a youth football tournament over in Japan. So they've had a couple of results. They lost 3-1 to a Nagata select side, with Orson Connery scoring the only goal for the Joeys, which was a penalty. And then they bounced back really well to have a 2-1 defeat of Wales just the other night. So Lucas Bekbanovsky scored one, and Miles Milliner scored the other one. So good to see them bounce back. And then their final game is going to be against Japan. So exciting times for our Joeys, and good to see them playing, which is really good.
Yeah, what a great initiative. Obviously, this is probably their first tour together. This side's been picked from the emerging Socceroos camp, and obviously their first game of football, they didn't have much luck. But again, this is the first time they've played as a squad, and then second time around they've beaten Wales. So what a great result, and really great test against Japan, against our nations, to see where they're at in their progression of their career. We've been crying out for games like this at this level. So onward and upward, and I just super excited about the Matildas too, Chief, because they've just been announced a game versus England. So this is exactly what we're after.
They got a game against England in Derby on the 29th of October, which is really cool. That's going to kind of be alongside their game against Wales. So they'll play those games. We've got so many of our Matildas actually playing in Europe now. So great to see them organise that friendly. It's obviously going to be a rematch of our semi-final World Cup against England from a few years back. So no doubt the Matildas are going to know plenty of the English players, but what good preparation that is for the Asian Cup.
Yeah, and they play Wales 3 days before it. So, they've got Wales and England. Super pickup. Well done, Football Australia, for organising that one.
Yeah, so we'll do a preview of that one as we get a bit closer to that game. And then the Junior Matildas, they've announced their squad for the upcoming AFC Under-17 Women's Asian Cup 2026 qualifiers. So yeah, very exciting times. We've seen a fair few of our teams qualify for big tournaments, and hopefully our under-17 Junior Matildas can do the same as they prepare for that tournament as well.
Yep, another great tournament. It's up onwards and upwards. They had a great tournament previously, so we're looking forward to some more games. All right, Chief, that's a wrap on international football. Wow, some exciting stuff happening there. So thanks to all the viewers for their comments too about the feedback on the teams as we watch this space leading into a World Cup in the next 9 months.
Well, right, we're going to have a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk everything that's happening on the domestic front. We'll be back in a sec. Thanks for listening to the Aussie Game Podcast. If you enjoy our content, we'd really appreciate you giving us a rating or a review on your preferred podcast platform. And if you do know of any Australian football fans that might enjoy it as well, sharing the podcast would mean a lot to us. All right, let's get back to the show. All right, we are back for part 3. We're talking everything that's happening back here in Australia. The big news of the week is probably that the fixtures for the A-League men's and A-League women's competition were released. The APL moved pretty quickly after the decision for Western United not to be part of the competition next season. So credit to them. I just wanted to pick out a few of the fixtures that have come up. I think it's really important for the A-League, and it's something probably they haven't done well in the past, but I think all these kind of rounds and games as much as possible to have these storylines, to have something to talk about every single week. The other codes do it really well, and I think they just make things up and put some dramatic music behind it. But I think we can do a good job here for the A-Leagues to see what we can do to drum up some interest, not just from the fans that follow these clubs, but a bit of outside interest. So let's start with the men's competition first. Round 1, straight off the bat, Friday night at Coopers. Coopers is kind of synonymous for the Friday night, so it makes sense for the opener to kick off there. They're playing Sydney FC. There's plenty of history between those two clubs. They've produced some classic games over the years. So amazing opportunity to just launch into the season and to talk about some of those narratives. The late Friday night game, bit of a stretch on that one for the games of the weekend, but it's Michael Valkanis' first game in charge, new squad. Hopefully they have a good crowd there at Suncorp. They're hosting MacArthur. And then on Saturday, we talk about the Wanderers playing City. Plenty of ex-players on both sides of the pitch, so they can draw up some storylines around that one. The next game on Saturday, Melbourne Victory versus Auckland FC. I'm sure everyone remembers that Victory upset Auckland over there in Auckland to knock them out of the finals last season. So, draw up some storylines around that. The distance derby on Saturday night, people make a bit of fun about the distance derby, but play into it. Make it exciting. Play it. Have it for what it is. It's a bit of fun. And then Sunday to close out the last game in round one of the men's competition is the F3 derby. So that's kind of big in itself, but the last time that game was played, the Jets actually won 6-0, and we are expecting the Jets to be really good this season, or a lot better than they have been. So I think there's an opportunity there to really get some excitement around round one as we kind of build into the season. It's something that a lot of fans have been critical of the competition. And then as we jump ahead to a few of the other rounds, so round 3, we've got Auckland versus Adelaide. They had some absolutely crazy games last season. There was a 4-4 draw and a 2-2 draw with heaps of stuff, heaps of drama going on in these games. So kind of building into that one. Round 4, we've got the New Zealand derby. And then after that game is the Melbourne derby on the Saturday night. Round 5, we've got the Big Blue between Sydney FC and Melbourne Victory. Round 6, we've got the Sydney derby. Round 7, there's another New Zealand derby straight off the bat. Round 8, original rivalry, Melbourne Victory versus Adelaide United. Round 9, we've got another Melbourne derby. Round 10, it's Steve Corica's, they're travelling away to Sydney FC. So already you're seeing those first 10 rounds, we just need to build the excitement. We need to grab these games, pull in the neutrals. I think last season they opened up with a Sydney derby, and it was really good in that sense that, got everyone behind it, but just play into these storylines as much as possible. I would implore the ABL to do that as much as they can. And then on the other side, the women, so straight off the bat, round 1, Sydney FC versus Melbourne City. They're two teams that we expect to be right up there, so in the league. So make sure we kind of build into that one. Round 2, Melbourne City versus the Mariners. Obviously that huge controversy with the Mariners knocking out Melbourne City last season in the finals. Was it offside? Was it not offside? Use that kind of to our advantage. Bev Priestman's first game in charge of Wellington Phoenix is round 2. That game's also before the men's New Zealand derby as well, so plenty of opportunity. Round 3, Victory versus Mariners, so grand final rematch. Round 6, F3 derby and the Sydney derby played in the same round, and round 10's the Melbourne derby. So I think they've got all the games in the right spots. It's just a matter now of actually marketing it in a way that brings in the general public and brings some excitement around. That's our opportunity. If we can get the kind of fence-sitting fans to get into the league in those first 10 rounds, we might just keep them for the rest of the season, and then who knows what happens from there.
Yeah, that's a fantastic profile, mate. Some super rivalries there. And also, please note, I think very importantly, Sydney FC's first few home games will be at Leichhardt Oval, obviously with the drainage going underway at Allianz. And I assume that's why round 6 Sydney derby and their fixture against Melbourne Victory, I think the week before, they'd be hoping for that ground to be ready for those big games because they're still TBA. I also love the fact that over in Auckland and Wellington, that they've got Bev Priestman's first game on beforehand. I think that's great initiative. So well done. That's a really good point there in round 2 for Bev Priestman's first game prior to the men's game. I think that's something that should be utilised a little bit more. So lots to look forward to. You've definitely promoted that one well, mate. So some fantastic work there and some lots of excitement. The A-League players will be chomping at the bit, especially the ones who've just we spoke about before, they've just missed out. They'll be looking to get off to a red-hot start. And obviously we know next this week, or next week, it is Sunday night we're recording, Melbourne City. starts their campaign in the Asian Champions League as well. So that would be a big start for the boys. Melbourne City, they play Saint Franche.
Yep. Yeah, let's just hope that there's going to put some marketing dollars. We know money's tight, but if they can put it in the right areas and drum up some interest, I think there's plenty to get excited about as we're looking forward into this A-League season. Let's jump into a bit of the club by club analysis, mate. Let's start with Brisbane Roar. Their CEO, Kaz Patafta, put out a statement during the week. Unfortunately, it wasn't the greatest news because there was an update on their fixtures for their women's team. So I'll just read a bit of the statement. So it is today that I can announce that we will be relocating all Ninja A-League women's fixtures to Imperial Corp Stadium, Newmarket, for the upcoming season. The decision was made for three key reasons. Firstly, unable to reach an agreement regarding the hire of Perry Park. Secondly, the venue no longer meets all required professional standards, which is very concerning. And following feedback from the wider playing cohort, it was deemed unsatisfactory for A-League women's football. As a result, the decision to move away from Perry Park was both necessary and unavoidable. And then they've also mentioned how impressive the Imperial Corp Stadium is, the venue that they're moving to. So very disappointing. We know Perry Park's been a hot topic for a lot of Brisbane fans and plenty of people wanting that to be redeveloped, both for the men's and women's team, but doesn't sound like things are progressing all that well in that area, unfortunately, for the Brisbane Roar. They have made a few signings, their women's team, during the week. So, firstly, US Youth International Ashton Miller, she joined for next season, and this is an exciting one. Kyla Hanson, she's joining for the 25-26 season from Eastern Suburbs. So she was the 2025 NPLW Golden Boot winner with an impressive 26 goals to her name, along with 9 assists. So exciting that they're bringing in goal scorer into the ranks there at Brisbane Roar. And then they've also signed Dutch forward Bente Jensen. So she's coming from AFC Ajax. So, yeah, definitely progressing some things over there at Brisbane Roar with their women's side.
Yeah, let's just have a quick recap. Imperial Corp Stadium is obviously located in Brisbane. It's the actual home of Brisbane City FC. The official capacity of this ground is 10,000. It can seat 3,000 though, so 7,000 will be standing or on the hill. So obviously that's a very interesting move, but obviously they feel that Spencer Park has the facilities to cope with obviously the next one. We did see some really good stats though around Brisbane with crowds coming in for trials. So obviously the market is there for fans to get around. So when they do go away from these original grounds, Perry Park and Suncorp, they do attract a lot of people. So that might be a good sign. It may not always be a negative one there, even though a lot of people are cheering Perry Park. But I think Perry Park's a longer issue for obviously the owners there and the government to sort out, and the governments of Queensland football, and hopefully they can redevelop them because it is a very pride ground up there in Brisbane.
Before we move on, the A-League women's team did get some good crowds there at Perry Park last season as well. So it is a real shame that they're having to move away, but obviously Patafta mentioned there's a few reasons. They couldn't even reach an agreement in the first place, let alone have it up to standards. So, yeah, sad situation there, but I think everyone's kind of crying out for a more convenient venue to play football out of in the Brisbane area. So let's hope that happens soon.
All right. What other signings have we got, my friend?
No more signings, but I just wanted to mention that the men's team, they beat Olympic FC in a preseason friendly as they prepare for the upcoming A-League season. This is a club that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago I was a bit concerned with, but I'm starting to change my tune a little bit with some of the signings they've brought in, mate, because Melbourne Victory, some of the signings that they've picked up this week, let me go through them. Denny Jonro at 26, he signed a 3-year deal after he had 4 seasons in Europe, hopped around at a few places in France and Spain, but he's back in the A-League, and plenty of Melbourne Victory fans very excited about this one. Jack Wachowski, he's come in from the Mariners. Didn't get a lot of game time at the Mariners, but he'll be a good backup goalkeeper for Duncan in goal to Melbourne victory. Big one in Matt Grimaldi, who's come in from Western United. So we mentioned the hit list of Western United last week. He was certainly one of those names we mentioned, and Melbourne victory have been able to pick him up. I think, as you mentioned last week, that ability for the Melbourne clubs to look at these players from Western United and they don't have to relocate. They don't have to do much. They can kind of just jump across the road. So Grimaldi's come in, and I think he's going to be a really good pickup for them. One other one I wanted to mention, not agreed, but heavily reported, Juan Mata. We know he got very limited game time at the Wanderers last season, but he certainly didn't fit Alan Stadish's kind of 4-4-2 system. Now, Victory play a 4-2-3-1, so him sitting in that little 10 pocket, whether that is from the start or off the bench, I think even at his age, he could offer a little bit to Melbourne Victory. So what do you think?
Yeah, good signings. Juan Marte, we all know his history, so yeah, he could definitely offer some ball playing style for Victory. Big fan of Dennis Giroux. I think he'll have a great year. Matt Grimaldi, that's really just strengthening the squad. So we always say Melbourne Victory, they always target the right players. They'll be competitive again, mark my word. They always are. So I reckon you'll probably see another couple more signings come in, and they'll probably pay the price and probably get off to a slow start, but they'll build nicely in the season. They already had a good existing squad. I know they've lost a lot, but they're a strong club, and look forward to seeing how they progress in the A-League.
One going the other way is a bit of a legend of the A-League in Bruno Fornaroli. So he's retired from professional football. He's going to take up a role in their football department, but has been reported, I don't think it's been officially announced, but he's going to sign for Avondale and play in the Australian Championship and the upcoming NPL
That's
Victoria.
unreal.
Yeah, it's a great way to promote the Australian Championship, having a player like that playing that competition. And not just is he exciting, but he can be a bit confrontational, and he can rile up defenders. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of spice whenever Bruno Fornaroli's involved. But he's had a fantastic career in the A-League. We obviously know he represented the Socceroos as well after he was nationalised. So he's provided some great highlights through the A-League, but probably his game time was limited a bit last season, and the signs were there. But I'm glad to see him still playing on at Avondale potentially, if those rumours are true. And as I said, great inclusion to come into the Australian Championship.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And big news over at Macarthur, Chief. What signings have we got there?
They've brought in a centre forward, Rafael Duran Martinez. He signed for the upcoming season. So, yeah, plenty of opportunity. They were kind of ravaged last season, Macarthur FC in January in particular. So, good to see them building their squad back up with a bit of experience. So, good to see. Do you want to touch on Melbourne City, who learned their opponents for the upcoming AFC Women's Champions League?
Yeah, and probably one of the favourites to take out the competition. They're in Group A. There's 3 groups overall. Melbourne City in their Group A has drawn Ho Chi Minh City of Vietnam, Stallion Laguna FC of Philippines, and Lion City Sailors from Singapore. So you would think they would progress in that one. In a 12-team tournament, they'd have to be one of the favourites. But yeah, they were very unlucky not to win this competition last year. So they have a massive, exciting squad, Melbourne City women. So we wish them all the best. It's good to see the games will be played in very quick concession on the 13th and 16th and 19th of November, to obviously for the travel. I reckon that's a good move to play that kind of format. But then they have to wait until March before the quarterfinals, and then the semi-final and finals in May. So a massive gap in between. So you've got to be able to retain, and then hopefully the same squad's there in May.
Yeah, it's an interesting format. Like, as you said, I think just purely for cost. So it looks like Vietnam will be the host for Group A, and then China for Group B, and then Myanmar for Group C. So, yeah, so they don't have to travel far and they can get these games kind of done and then they kind of move on to the next. But yeah, big
That's
gaps
smart.
between.
I like that concept. I think
Yeah,
that's fantastic. Yeah, one to think about for the future, even in Australia.
yeah. Yeah, so that's exciting for them to come up. Obviously, a couple of months now until they play those games, but I'm sure we'll keep an eye on that closer to the time. And then also this week for Melbourne City, for their women's squad, Melissa Barbieri, she signed for her 29th season as a professional. What a legend.
That's unbelievable. Wow. Oh, that's so good. Another good story.
Most people retire before 29, let alone playing 29 seasons.
That's incredible.
Crazy. And for their men's team, they've brought in winger and Kosovan international Elbasan Rishani for the upcoming season. So we know they lost a few, so maybe it's a kind of Tilio replacement. I guess we'll see. I think already can play on both sides, so pretty adaptable. And look, they're just continuing to strengthen their squad, the Melbourne City men's team. Plenty of news out of Sydney FC, as per usual, mate. Never a quiet day at Sydney FC. Let's start firstly with some reports from 10 News Sydney that Douglas Costa's contract will be mutually terminated. So he's still in Brazil, hasn't reported back to training for Sydney FC. And we did hear some quotes from Ufuk a couple of weeks back that basically saying that they want Douglas Costa, he wants to be there, but they're also not going to sit on their hands as they get close to the season, and potentially they're going to have to move. So maybe there's some activity happening in that area.
Yeah, Sydney FC, they're going to go through a bit of a generational change, aren't they? They've got a very young side. So, but, they're exciting against Wrexham. So I think there's a lot of potential there. And they're going to get their opportunity because, yeah, they've lost some more experienced players. But, I think this is a right step for Sydney FC. I don't think they have to be, signed up by these big name players. The talent's there. Let them play, and looking forward to seeing some of the younger players that we've seen against Wrexham play, and in the obviously the Han Cup as well.
We mentioned the Peruvian player they signed last week playing as a 10. Potentially, if Costa's not playing on one of those wings, you do have players like Yuli who can come in and there, and then obviously Joe Lolly as well. So they do have fair few options still
Yeah,
in those attacking areas. And then if Al Hassan Toure gets his body right, hopefully he can lead the line for that squad too.
yeah, no doubt. That's why they didn't want to let Yayoli go to Perth. That's for sure, because obviously they could see this coming.
Yeah, that's it. All right, some other news around Sydney FC. They've been linked to Abel Wallity. I think he's a fantastic player. He was formerly of Western United. So, yeah, he would be another exciting winger that they could bring into their squad. A lot of potential in Abel Wallity. Defender Aaron Gerd, he's extended his contract until June 2027, but as part of the deal, he's going to go on a season-long loan to a Thai League One side. Kanchanaburi Power FC. So they will also have an option to make the move permanent once their domestic campaign concludes. So interesting move from Sydney FC. They do have some players that they've brought in. Oh, they have one player they brought in the off season as well as Alex Grant and Popovic as well in that back line. So still plenty of options, even if Gerd doesn't return after his loan spell. So we'll see what happens with him. They played out a 2-all friendly draw with the Jets during the week. Their scorers were Pat Wood and Matthias McAllister. Good to see Matthias back on the score sheet after that penalty miss against Auckland FC in the Australia Cup. So, yeah, good to see him back at it, Matthias McAllister.
The young son of Dylan McAllister. So,
Yeah.
well done. Bounce straight back into it. That's how football works, mate. Just history, and then now make your future.
Yep.
All right. Over in Adelaide United, mate, what do we got over there?
Yeah, just a quick one for Adelaide United. Annalie Grove, she's left by mutual consent. Auckland FC, this was a big pick up for them. Funnily, the way that this one worked out, because St. Louis City announced this on their social media, but Auckland FC didn't reciprocate. So I'm not sure if Auckland have even come out officially and said it, but certainly as far as St. Louis City, Jake Gilbert-Reich is coming to Auckland on loan for the season. So he wasn't getting a lot of game time over at St. Louis City, so probably a good move for him. He's one of our young players who's jumped across to the MLS, and we know how challenging that league is, but he's a player that's played formerly under Steve Corica at Sydney FC, so we should be familiar with him, and I would expect him to have a decent contribution there at Auckland FC. We know their defence was really solid, but I think he's just going to add to that. He can also play in that defensive midfield spot if he needs to as well. So good pickup from Auckland FC. They've done some good work in the transfer market.
They just keep getting stronger, don't they? Wow, they're gonna be another powerhouse this year. What about the Jets, mate? On both sides, we've got some news from the women's team.
Yep, couple of women signing. New Zealand international Kelly Brown, she's signed for the upcoming season. And then Lauren Allen, she's also re-signed with the squad. She'll be entering her 7th A-League season. So good longevity there from Lauren Allen. This one's an exciting one. Plenty of Phoenix fans excited about this one. I know Bev Priestman was a huge favourite of Macy Fraser. So she's returned to the club after a spell in the US. She signed a 3-year contract. So she was one of the first women to join the club's academy in 2021, and she finalised a record transfer at the time to the National Women's Soccer League. I believe it was Utah that she was playing for in April last year after a breakout maiden season. So I think the Phoenix are pretty glad to have Macy Fraser back. And I think good business signing her on a 3-year contract. So if she does come back and impress, that they can potentially demand a fee as they sell her on.
Yeah, smart business move. Love those 3-year contracts. Yeah, if like you said, if they get another bidder, because she's a talent, they'll be able to reap the benefits of it, both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to finish off with some news out of Canberra United. They've strengthened their attacking stocks with the signing of exciting forward Chiara Di Demizio, and they've also signed American midfielder Josie Olicino for the forthcoming season. So good to see Canberra United building their squad as they work into the season. So plenty happening on the domestic front. We do have a lot of NPL winners being finalised as well. We might do a full wrap of that next week because there's a few grand finals still to be played. But once we know all the winners, we'll walk you through all those and congratulate all those teams, because plenty of them are going to be involved in the upcoming Australian Championship as well. So plenty to get through this week, mate. Plenty of good talking points. And yeah, is there anything that's catching your eye in the upcoming week?
Oh, absolutely. Melbourne City, first Asian Champions League home game against Sanfrecce will be an absolute cracker. Can't wait to see Kai Truan and Melbourne City's squad obviously start the season, and hopefully they can get a result. It's been really tough for the Australian teams in the Asian Champions League, but I think Melbourne City have definitely got some big signings and some building a nice side again. They're just they are the leaders when it comes to Australian football in this department. And so we just wish them well in the upcoming week. And obviously we've got some games overnight. Superman we've just seen is in the starting lineup, Superman Segacic. So it'll be interesting to see how he responds after not getting any game time or not even in the squad in the second game. So hopefully he comes up with a cracker. And obviously, we wish everyone the best as they recover. We've got a few Aussies in action in the Carabao Cup in England midweek, so starting to get up to play some higher teams, higher levels. We've got Cam Burgess up against Big Ange, so that'll be interesting for Swansea at home to Notts Forest, so that'll be interesting. And then obviously I can't wait to see the final 21 under 20 side. I want to see who they're playing in their friendly, so hopefully we get an announcement. Surely they're going to play someone before the World Cup as a lead up, so whether that's overseas, but yeah, looking forward to that final cut of 21. There's going to be a couple of disappointing players, but what a cracking squad. Oh my God, 2 weeks. Wow. I can't wait to play Italy. It's going to be super.
Yeah, 2 weeks to that tournament kicks off. As mentioned before, we are going to do a dedicated preview just a couple of days before that tournament kicks off. So keep an eye out for that one. For me, mate, I'm excited to see Ange Ball 2.0 Wednesday, and we'll see what kind of squad he picks. I thought he might have rolled out the kids, but it doesn't sound like he is going to be doing that. And he's going to put Ange Ball in full swing, get them back on the training field maybe today, and then all preparation in for that game. So it's going to be exciting to see how they approach that, what kind of players they play. We'll also mention that MacArthur are playing in the AFC Cup on Thursday. I think that game is.
Yep,
So
another good one.
Good luck to them as well. There's heaps of midweek action, plenty of cup activity. So all of our Australian players are going to be very busy during the week. So heaps to look forward to, and we look forward to bringing all of that to you next week when we record for the Aussie Game Podcast. So thanks everyone for listening. It's been a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for everyone's support, either listening to the podcast or following us on social media. We love all the interaction that we have with our listeners and our followers on social media. So yeah, we love the support. Thank you very much. And we look forward to having you all with us next week.
Yeah, have a good week, everyone.